Acolytes. Doubling down. Douglas Murray and absolutely nothing on Rogan. Rogan is a podcast. I don't know what this is about, what this drama is about. I know what happened, but hey, you just start and see. And by the way, I don't even know who Douglas Murray is, but still interesting. Let's learn something
And she
new.
just got blown up.
There is an argument to be made that level of devastation and death is worse than you talking to someone on your podcast.
Allegedly.
There is an argument to be made. It's probably not a good one,
The amount
but
of
there is
damage
an
you can do
argument.
with just talking.
There is an argument to be made that, starvation and stuff like that and people dying is worse than a podcast.
But wait,
Who the F would argue against that, Acolytes? Well, I can imagine a few freaks arguing against. Nah, okay, fair enough.
wait a minute.
I wouldn't
Wait
make
a minute
it.
before you say that. Have you been there?
Right, that's a good point.
You haven't been?
By the way, how is he in all these wars? Can I just go to wars?
Well, I think it's safe to say Douglas Murray is probably not going to appear on Rogan again anytime soon.
Okay, fair enough, I guess.
Ah, yes. Thank you, Dave, for sharing this gem of an article. I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you're probably up to date on the skinny. But
Douglas Murray, so-called Israel-Hamas-Ukraine war, exports spew false info on Joe Rogan's podcast. There has to be a standard. Okay. Damn, I guess.
if you aren't, allow me to fill you in. Douglas Murray went on Joe Rogan with libertarian comedian Dave Smith, presumably to debate some contentious subjects, namely Ukraine, Russia, and Israel, as well as to scold Rogan for platforming some apparently dubious characters, at which point he jump-started the process of handing himself his own ass. That's a basic TLDR of the story here. Even Dave conceded this, that he didn't so much win as Murray lost on account of him being a spastic git, weaving himself into a contradictory pretzel. I mean, look at this headline. So-called Israel-Hamas Ukraine war experts spew false info on Joe Rogan's podcast. There has to be a standard. Yeah, that was basically my reaction as well. I can do a whole video just glancing at that headline. There has to be a standard, as enforced by who? And
Okay. How the F would you do an entire video about this headline? I want to learn this skill. I don't know how, but for F's sake.
on what authority? And for what purpose? Moving on, I didn't even know where to begin here, really. Two things can be inferred from this. If you watch the debate, if you watch the first 40 minutes, hell, if you watch the first 15, that headline will immediately make you speculate and ask a whole bunch of questions. Namely, what the fucking hell is he talking about? This headline was debunked in the first 15 minutes of the show. It's written as if it's assuming no one reading this article would have watched it. And considering Joe is the largest podcast in the world, this comes across as extremely cockeyed considering his opening remarks. Either that or he just assumes he can double down and won't catch any flack, which frankly speaks volume of the world Murray lives in, or rather the one his handlers have cultivated for him. Or perhaps he believes no one reading this would also watch Rogan Show, so he can just say whatever. Who the hell knows, really? He's a shill, so he's not going to have any consistency other than loyalty to a paycheck, let's not kid ourselves. But he still comes across as an idiot who learned fuck all. Shame that perspective only exists with those who can tell he's full of shit. Last week I seemed to break the internet. Murray, if your performance was anything to go by, the words "the internet" needs to be scrubbed from that sentence because you were an utterly embarrassing wanker for the first hour of that show. Hands down the
I have to watch it. I just have to watch it. This sounds absolutely like a disaster. Damn.
worst performance of your career. And now we see a whole bunch of cretins crawling out the woodwork, desperately trying to defend him. Not even Trump can save you, pal. I went back on the Joe Rogan podcast to talk about my new book on democracies and death cults, Israel, and the future of civilization. Considering the present geopolitical situation, there's a whole bunch of ways to interpret that title. He was there to promote a book? Really? I mean, after this performance, I can't imagine you would get a boost in sales, but anyway. Joe's a master of his art, talks casually for hours, etc., etc. But this time, I went on with a question. Having not spoken to Joe since the wars in Ukraine and Israel started, I had become increasingly irked that the guests he has had on have been almost entirely anti-Ukraine and anti-Israel. Geez, I wonder why. You're upset the man talks to people who are anti-war in regions that have jack shit to do with the United States, pose no immediate threat or strategic value.
Yes.
And this irks you.
And by the way, I understand that people just don't give a shit about it. That's natural. For F's sake, the thing is so far away. I would... While I understand that they don't give a F, this could also bleed over even to America. So maybe not totally do anything, but there could be a bleed over just to actually stop that one. Maybe a bit of a shit given, but not necessarily from the people that are, well, normal people, just from the politics that actually handle the entire thing. So there's that.
Why? Food for thought, don't you think? Who am I kidding? This is a man who wrote a book called Neoconservatism, Why We Need It. He's the kind of man who would speak fondly of John McCain and glaze John Bolton. Many of the latter in particular are not just vindictively and maliciously anti-Israel, citation needed, pal, but have been spewing claims that are demonstrably false. Is he going to mention even a single one? No. Many are also people who are simply in no way expert at what they are talking about. Yes, says the one holding a degree in English talking U.S. foreign policy. You know, for all this BS talk of spewing claims that are demonstrably false, you couldn't even name a single false claim, let alone debunk one. Again, it's really like someone who is so arrogant, they can just ignore reality. And then again, considering who he shills for, that's hardly a surprise. Hell, ignoring reality is borderline a damn prerequisite at this point. As I said in the previous video, it strikes me as unbelievably stupid to go on a show and chastise the panel for who they've platformed, claiming they spew falsehoods and aren't experts. Meanwhile, neither are you, and you've never even watched their content. Not only have you not watched their content, you don't even know who they are because you kept mixing up their names. Anyone with an IQ over room temperature could tell 15 minutes in you were not there to debate. You were not there to discuss ideas. Sure as hell you were not there to talk about some book. No. You were there in a fickle attempt to gatekeep criticism of Israel because you're Netanyahu's little bitch. That's all there is to it. Let's not pretend otherwise. One of these is a comedian who goes by the name of Dave Smith, claiming some Jewish ancestry. He has spent the 18 months since October the 7th, 2023 being very unfunny indeed. My word, you really are gay, aren't you? Specifically, he has decided to spend his time going around the podcast world, sounding off about Israel. Yes, as one is likely to do if you're a libertarian, and therefore isolationist, express a disdain at your tax dollars being used to fund a war, especially when your nation's political realm is essentially bought off by the lobbying power of the foreign nation involved in said war. I imagine most people are not fond of this, never mind the libertarians. In the process, he largely cites people like him, people who have many views but no obvious expertise. According to who? This is basically Murray speak for everyone who doesn't adhere to my worldview is not an expert. Basically, the conservative version of everyone I don't like is a Nazi. Actually, that's a pretty accurate summation of this situation as well, never mind. I'm not...
Yeah, at the end of the day, just think. The thing is, I don't even think you need to be an expert in a particular thing to actually know what you're talking about, because what I think experts have, let's just call it a problem, maybe that's the wrong word for it, but there is a fact that if you're a master of or an expert in a certain thing, you may know a lot of things about the entire thing, but specific things or on-point things that you maybe can focus on, maybe you won't know that, like little details. And somebody that actually specializes in this could know this specific part better than you. But it's also extremely hard to actually get it right or to know who knows better.
Exactly sure what experts he's referring to involve in the present-day conflict, though. The Russian one is far more interesting, especially the NATO perspective, because when I learned about the history, that perspective did not come from people who shared my political worldview at all. They were Marxists, communists, Presbyterian preachers, former American statesmen, monarchists, anarchists, professors, basically a gauntlet of political flavors who would never have anything in common in a million years, but for whatever reason can understand that Russia will not take kindly to what would be a hostile foreign power with a lengthy track record of interventionism, marching what should be a redundant military alliance to its doorstep. You don't need to be pro-Russia to understand that, just the basics of private property. I mean, for heaven's sakes, if the Marxists can understand that, but you don't, that is quite the damning indictment. People like Daryl Cooper, who evidently lives rent-free in your head and has gotten so much free press thanks to you, so well done on that front, who says he isn't a historian yet has been invited onto some of the world's biggest podcasts as a historian. The only biggest podcast that I can find that listed him as a historian is Tucker Carlson, by the way, and that's it. One of Cooper's many ahistorical claims is that Winston Churchill was the chief villain of World War II, insert academic agents not of approval here. On these and many other occasions, Cooper has simply lied about history. Yet still, Cooper gets invited on show after show to throw out falsehoods that he can't even back up. Says the one who refuses to even identify one, on which his online interviewers seem happy not to challenge him. Another such figure from the world of comedy who has changed his shape to fit the time is Rogan guest Ian Carroll. This is someone who, when he last went on Rogan's podcast, very carefully tried to minimize the evil of the Austrian man with the paintbrush and a pocket full of dreams. Outrageously and completely falsely, Carroll claimed that in the 1930s he had kept his anti-Semitism down, a provably false claim that Rogan did nothing to counter. All these men have also been palling around online with Holocaust deniers and proud anti-Semites like Jake Shields.
For X's sake, Rogan is a podcaster and he just goes and endorses things. You don't have to contrarian everything. Oh, for F's sake, this is... Okay. Stupid argument, by the way.
My god, this man is such a boob. Let's just tackle this in no particular order. Joe, or any other interviewer for that matter, is under no obligation to challenge their guests, especially if they don't know any better. It's a conversation, not an interrogation, you twat. What are you trying to police the host and the guest now, are you?
The thing is, from what I can hear right now, or until now, there is bullying going on, or at least a some kind of Versuch of bullying. There is definitively a few steps in that direction. That's just how people work, or how those things get done, especially in the, past few years. And just copying those tactics, won't go over well.
My word, are you going to be very popular? Far as downplaying the shenanigans of the mustache man goes, it wasn't Ian who said that, it was Daryl who said that. Apparently. This was said to your face on the podcast. My word, you confused them then, and you still confuse them now. Clearly you didn't listen, which begs the question, why the hell should anyone listen to you? It just baffles me how he can write this, considering his performance on the podcast. And bloody hell, journalists have a bad enough reputation as it is, and you're voluntarily choosing to ignore the reality of what transpired on the largest podcast in the world. I'll give him credit on consistency for at least one thing. He's not an expert, and can therefore evidently refute fuck all. But it is hilarious to hear him say he doesn't know what he's talking about, when he literally doesn't know what Daryl talks about. Like, I don't know about any of you, but if someone comes to me and says, this person is no expert, he spews falsehoods, my immediate response would be, well, okay then, present the falsehoods and then the truth. If you can't present the truth, hell, if you can't even identify the falsehoods, why the hell should I give a wank what you have to say about anything?
Yep.
I don't find that to be a particularly controversial position.
Fair enough.
Failing to present any of this, and continuing to mumble on this mealy-mouthed vague nonsense, void of any substance, by the way, is clear as day evidence of agenda setting. This isn't about facts, this is about narrative weaving. And that he doesn't have the balls to just come out and say that, but go straight to the gatekeeping, tells me he's hiding something. He knows his position is an immoral one. The way he spoke to Rogan as well was not someone who went there to debate or talk about some book. No, he came off like a mafia henchman with a warning. And seriously, much respect to Rogan for making fun of him. I'll save the Jake Shields bit for the end. 2 weeks ago, Rogan had his mate Dave Smith on yet again for a long podcast. He says something like a jealous girlfriend. But for my return to the show, the deal was that I could come on only if Dave Smith was once again in the studio, as if Joe didn't want to be unaccompanied, or that Joe thought that it was I, of all his guests, who must be challenged. This is a really strange way to frame this, as if Rogan was somehow scared of you, or that he's the one with the agenda and not you. Guarantee you Joe did not have this mindset going in. Sure as hell has a different opinion of Murray now, though, I can promise you that one. And he's not the only one. I like a debate as much as the next Scotsman, but what resulted...
The thing is, this all sounds that Murray guy is a freaking bully. This is just a tactic of someone... How can I describe it correctly? A preacher. Yeah, I think a preacher is the correct term for this one. Because he just spews misleading, just things that potentially aren't true or just aren't true straight up. But he can spew a lot of them in a short time. And to explain them, you need about 5 times as much time to actually do it. And this is a debate tactic that a lot of preachers use. You can also do it in written form like he does. This is just so effed up. But, I mean... Murray. Yeah. I mean, for F's sake, can I assume that he's religious? Oops. Douglas. Murray. Douglas Murray, British author, publisher, politische Themen, Religion, atheistische... Oh, an atheist. Well, Murray, you're being a quite big cunt there, aren't you? Arguing like a preacher. Not the best thing you could have copied from religion. And by the way, acolytes, I believe in the unholy God's Trinity, but that doesn't count. I myself am also a atheistic-based Lich. Except for the unholy gods, they exist. There's nothing to argue about that. But don't be an asshole constantly. And argue with logic, not with your poor little feelings. For F's sake, how is this still a thing?
was more than a debate. It seemed to have led to some kind of podcast world meltdown. Oh, please give me a freaking break. Don't act like the meltdown wasn't you. For the first 40 minutes, you were an incoherent, contradictory mess. Hell, this entire damn article reads like you bolted straight for the safety of the institutions, begging for reaffirmations that you didn't completely wet yourself for the entire world to see. I mean, let's be real, if you won the debate, you wouldn't be knee-deep in coke writing this piece of desperation. The first reason was that, from the outset, I challenged Joe on his choice of guests and why he had been giving a platform to only one side of the debate. Because your fellow talking heads in the mainstream media already do that, you pleb. And a very conspiratorial one at that. He and Smith were immediately defensive. Okay, why the hell would Rogan bother talking to people who glazed the forever wars? What would be the bloody point? If I want to be surrounded by nothing but propaganda, there's already plenty of avenues for that. Secondly, at no point were Joe and Dave on the defensive. From what I could tell, they mopped the floor with you because you were attempting to morally browbeat them for platforming people you've never even bloody listened to. Which, by the way, is just a golden boon to your credibility as a journalist. It's quite the challenge to take you seriously when you can't even identify the falsehoods that you're chastising the host for platforming. The bit that I found bizarre, it was not even that. The appeals to authority were numerous, and well done to Dave for pointing them out. But despite him referring to his favorite so-called experts, at no point does he even utilize their expertise in any tangible way. He just leverages their prestige, and that's all. The question that I keep mulling over in my head about all of this, never mind the fact that his argument was an incoherent, disjointed mess, is who the hell told him this strategy was a good idea? I keep looking at the first 40 minutes thinking, the attempts to chastise Rogan, denigrate Dave, not even knowing the names of the people you're giving them grief for, appealing to experts to debunk claims that you yourself don't even know. I look at this and think, how the hell did you think this was going to go? It was so incompetently amateurish. If someone told me he was blackmailed into doing this, I would almost consider that plausible. You know when you see someone do something that stupid, you're almost questioning the motive? Basically that. But the real problem came when I raised the issue of expertise. Because as I said then, and have said often, we have lived through a period when the experts have gotten an awful lot of things wrong. I wonder why. It's almost like they're driven by something not factual, which totally doesn't apply to you at all now, does it, Douglas? From the Koof leak to the Hunter Biden laptop, we have lived through years after which distrust of experts has become inevitable. Yet that doesn't mean that expertise does not exist. Okay, apparently we need to spoon-feed Mr. Murray here because he doesn't quite seem to understand this. Experts wrongy, lessee credibility. It's not rocket science. Have these experts done anything to regain their credibility after hemorrhaging it for years on end? No. So what the hell is your point then? Mine would be to look at the experts who actually have a better track record of being right more often, which is why I listen to the likes of Professor Mearsheimer, who is an actual expert and, unlike you, called Ukraine right on the money over 10 years ago. And what's more, he didn't need to go there. It does not mean that a comedian can simply hold himself out as a Middle East expert and should be listened to as if he has any body of work. Yes, agreed. No one should ever listen to Konstantin Kisin on anything ever. It does not mean that someone who says they are not a historian but who practices false history should be cited as a historian. Take it up with Tucker Carlson and stop lecturing us, you wanker. This point seemed to rile both Smith and Rogan. It appears to have riled their audiences even more, demonstrably false. They were not remotely riled, they were taking the piss out of you. Mostly because you made no fucking sense. Go to the comment section on that video. It's literally thousands of comments of Murray getting shredded. Hell, Douglas Leiter will be forever meme with the phrase, but have you been there? Holy shit, I just saw that's actually a headline in this article. Oh, good lord, what timeline is this? Because many people seem to think that what I mean is that they are not allowed to have an opinion. You should maybe ask yourself why. That is wrong. I think they are. It's just that there should be a price to pay for spreading bullshit, and part of that price is that you should be called out. Yeah, don't worry, Douglas. For once, I think the internet largely agrees with you, hence the ratio in that comment section. If I had gone on Rogan's podcast and held myself out as an expert in MMA fighting, I suspect he would have noticed. If I had kept making mistake after mistake and shown ignorance piled upon ignorance, I think he'd say, hey, you don't seem to be very knowledgeable about this. And he'd be right. So why is it so hard to grasp that something similar applies in other areas? Okay, first off, comparing sports to history is leagues apart, no pun intended. One involves the distant past, which you did not feature in, which makes it a hell of a lot more ambiguous, especially when it meshes with modern-day myths. Secondly, MMA is his field of expertise, you donut. Naturally, he's going to be more able to suss out ignorance on that front. Not so much when he's talking to someone who knows infinitely more about the history of the Second World War. My lord, the more I read from this man, the more I realize just how stupid he is. Having spent most of the past 18 months in Israel, Gaza, Lebanon, and Ukraine, I don't think I know everything. Yeah, just enough to berate anyone who hasn't been there. But I think I know a darn sight more than someone like Comic Smith, who admitted he'd never even been to the region he spends all his time talking about. Oh, so you have to go to a country to comment on it, do you? Said part of the internet. Again, the answer is obviously not. But if it is your job, or you're making it your job, then probably yes. Again, let me translate. No when you're talking about something that I don't care about, and yes when I do. And you better agree with my worldview after you've been there. You know, Douglas, you supported the Iraq War. That didn't pan out. You went to Ukraine and said they could win, which is bloody amazing, seeing as significantly better armies have tried to tackle the Russian bear and came up short. Claiming Ukraine could win is...
To be fair on this point, it was in defense. Never in... when the Russians attacked, they always got a massive losses. But they have a lot of, let's just say, manpower to actually, how is it called, to replace the fallen ones. And the thing is, if you attack Russia, yeah, then you're effed. Especially because wars aren't done in a month. Those are year-long things. And if you attack Russia in winter, well, you're effed. Basically. Nothing will work there. This is one of the best natural defenses you got there. Just be cold, yeah.
It's not even propaganda, it's just straight up delusional. Why you lean so heavily into this narrative of being there somehow carries more weight, I will never know. Especially when your own track record on that proves it to be false. If I filled columns for this paper pretending to be an expert on countries I'd never been to, I would expect my readers to complain. I swear
Yes.
he gets paid to say the word expert because he's damn near obsessed with this phrase, which is bizarre because none of the people he's been denigrating call themselves experts. Between his disaster on Rogan to this article, what has he actually done differently? What has he learned? Because if this article is anything to go by, absolutely fuck all. His entire argument can be summed up as, experts have been wrong. A lot. Question the experts. Except my experts. Their expertise is always primo. Now, shut up, you Nazi. Bloody hell, maybe horseshoe theory isn't bollocks after all. Cheers for watching, and once again, I apologize for...
Damn. Okay. From what I heard and read here, because yes, I also read with him, it's... Damn, if somebody can write an article like this, in this kind of way, I automatically distrust them to a very, very high degree. There is nothing even close that I'm gonna trust the person with. This is just disingenuous as F. And I don't know what the Murray guy did beforehand. I don't know what the frick he actually, well, does for a living or something like that. But for F's sake, this is disingenuous. This is just... No. This guy is acting like a preacher. I despise preachers for my unlife. This unacceptable. But as it is, acolytes, good night.